everyone. We are NIT Silchar Model United Nations, and we are going to demonstrate the flow of debate and MUN procedures for any Model UN committee. We will be using the UNEP committee as an example and the UNA USA procedure. And just to make things a little simple to understand, we will take up the agenda planning for a post-oil world. Now, first of all, we would like to introduce everyone present in the committee here. The first being the chair, then the co-chair, the international press, also called the IP, and our delegates. The chairperson or the chair moderates when can a delegate speak and moderates the debates as well. The co-chair keeps the time of the debates and caucuses and keeps a track of the speakers' lists as well. The international press asks questions from the delegates based on their speeches, and every delegate represents a country whose placard they hold. A delegate never addresses himself or herself in first person. So this was about everyone present in the committee. Now, before we start, we need to know what motions and points are in any MUN. Motions are actions made by delegates to direct debate in a certain direction. We can have motions like to set the agenda, to suspend a debate, or for either a moderated caucus or an unmoderated caucus, or to close a debate or to adjourn a meeting. On the other hand, points can be used to communicate with fellow delegates and chair. We can have the points like the first one being the point of personal privilege. If you are feeling any discomfort, if you want to use any restroom, you can use this point. The next one being the point of order. If you feel there is an error in the proceedings, you can raise this point. Followed by the point of information. Whenever a delegate completes a speech and is open for questions, then you can ask questions with the help of point of information. Now, the session starts with setting up the floor for the debate. Let us have a look.
I call this session to order. Are there any points on the floor, delegates? Saying no points, are there any motions on the floor? Delegate of USA, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. The delegate of USA would like to raise the motion to start with the proceedings.
Thank you, delegate. Are there all those who second? This motion passes and the floor is now open for the debate.
After opening the floor for debate, we now move on to the roll call, in which the chairperson or the co-chairperson call the country names in alphabetical orders, and every delegate can have two responses, either present, in which he or she can vote yes, no, or abstain himself or herself from voting. The second one being the present and voting, in which a delegate can either vote a yes or a no.
Delegates, please respond to your roll calls. Delegate of China.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Russian Federation.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Saudi Arabia.
Present and voting.
Delegate of UAE.
Present and voting.
And delegate of United States.
Present and voting.
Now, after the roll call, the chair sets up the general speakers list, which is a non-exhaustive list and goes on till the end of the entire session. Delegates have to get their names added to this list to share their general views or on the topic of their wish. And this is called the formal form of debate. It starts with deciding a speaking time.
Are there any motions on the floor, delegates? Delegate of Saudi Arabia?
The delegate of Saudi Arabia would like to raise a motion to open the formal debate with individual speaker time of 1 minute.
All those seconding? Delegates in favor? Yes, the motion clearly passes. Please raise your placard or use the hand raise feature if you wish to be added to the speakers list. Delegate of Russia, you're recognized. Delegate of UAE, you're recognized. Delegate of China, you're recognized. Delegate of Russia, you have the floor for next 60 seconds.
Thank you, Chair, for your recognition. At the initial stages, accepting a world without oil as a source of energy would certainly be hard and would be incomprehensible. Because the globe has diverse countries and states with different economic status. For a developing or an underdeveloped nation, using clean fuel as an alternative means won't be economical for them at the initial stages. But on the contrary, such a wall would obviously bring a development in the health index of several nations as pollution rates due to burning fuel in oil. The delegate of Russia is hopeful that within a short span of time, all countries around the globe will have access to clean and renewable energy as an alternate means to oil, which in fact will boost the health of the planet and its residents. Thank you.
Now the delegate is left with around 19 seconds. And let us see how does he yield his time. He has three options. Either he should be open to points of information and the other delegates will be able to ask questions from him, or he can yield his time to the chairperson or to any delegate.
Delegate, you still have 18 seconds left. How would you like to yield your time?
The delegate would like to have points of information.
Are there any points on the floor, delegates? Delegate of China? You're recognized. You may ask your question.
Yes. So oil and gas currently account for over 60% of Russia's export to China. Imagining an oil crisis, how will Russia try to make up its target of export to China?
As the delegate of Russia has already mentioned, that a war without oil at the initial stages won't be easy to comprehend. But Russia is having certain precautionary measures to be implemented so that our exports are not affected because the economy also needs to survive.
Now the delegate of China is not satisfied with the answer and requests for a plea to follow up.
The delegate of China requests for a plea to follow up.
Granted, delegate.
So the previous answer didn't mention any specific step, nor was particular. The delegate would like to hear particular steps Russia will take up.
Certain steps and measures cannot be made public, taking into consideration internal security and other internal issues. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. Moving on the speakers list, we have our next delegate, delegate of UAE. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Being one of the non-renewable and on-demand resources, the exhaustion of oil is obvious. As the supply would gradually decrease, our dependence on it would get highlighted more, and if not prepared for the post-oil era, the shortage would be faced in real good and on wider scales. Being an oil-rich region with an economy cylindrical around it, challenges are standing in the way while we, the oil-producing as well as consuming nations, make shifts in oil dependencies as we are obliged to do in the post-oil era.
Now the delegate of UAE is left with around 28 seconds. Let us see how does she yield her time.
I'd like to yield my remaining time to the next speaker.
Okay, delegate, that is in order. Delegate of USA, you have the remaining time of the delegate of UAE, that is 26 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. USA has been making efforts against climate change from a long period of time. We have the vision to not only achieve net zero emissions by 2050, but also completely eradicate any commodity which consumes oil as fuel by 2060. Post-oil world we see as a sustainable living world. Therefore, we must act now and come up with alternative fuel options which are efficient, renewable, and most importantly, emission-free. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, delegate of Saudi Arabia. We have added your name to the speakers list.
Now, we move on to a different kind of debate, that is a moderated caucus. In a moderated caucus, the delegates discuss specific topics with the time limit provided by the delegates whose motion passes. There can't be any yielding in moderated caucuses.
Are there any motions on the floor, delegates? Delegate of Russia, you're recognized. Delegate of Russia, your motion, please.
The delegate of Russia would like to suspend a formal debate and enter into a moderated caucus on the topic importance of clean and green energy in improving health index for a total time being of 9 minutes with individual speaker time 90 seconds.
Thank you, delegate. Delegate of China, you're recognized.
Delegate of China would like to suspend the formal debate and enter into a moderated caucus on the topic alternate source of energy for combating the issues of post-oil world for a total time of 5 minutes with an individual speaker time of 70 seconds.
Now, The delegate of China initially gives a total time that is not divisible by the number of speakers. So the chair corrects it.
Sorry, delegate, but the motion isn't in order. Would you like to amend it?
Yes, the delegate of China would like to suspend the formal debate and enter into a moderated caucus on the topic alternate source of energy for combating the issues of post-oil world for a total time of 6 minutes with an individual speaker time of 60 seconds.
The delegate of China has now amended her motion. Now is the time for voting on these motions. Voting on caucuses will proceed in the order of most disruptive. Hence, the motion that impacts the rules of formal debate the most will take precedence. For instance, a motion for a 9-minute moderated caucus would be voted on before a motion for 6-minute moderated caucus.
Okay, according to the order of disruption, delegate of Russia's motion will be voted upon first. So delegates seconding the motion raised by the delegate of Russia, please raise your placard and your raise hand feature. Okay, the motion clearly passes. So we won't be considering the motion proposed by the delegate of China. We are now in the moderated caucus on the topic importance of clean and green energy in improving health index for a time period of 9 minutes. Delegates wish to add their names to the moderated caucus, please raise your placards. Delegate of Russia, would you like to be the first speaker or the last speaker?
The delegate would like to be the last speaker.
Okay, so we have delegate of Saudi Arabia, followed by delegate of China, followed by delegate of UAE, followed by delegate of USA, followed by delegate of Russia. Okay, delegate of Saudi Arabia, you have the floor for the next 90 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. As time flies by and the world has shortage of fossil fuels, the world must adopt alternative measures to combat this post-oil crisis. Saudi Arabia, under its Vision 2030, has already been working to reduce country's dependency on oil and diversify its economic resources, as a result of which non-oil industries have increased by 2.9% last year. Saudi Arabia has also focused on improving the health index of the country by promoting other industries in its country. Thank you.
Now, as we saw, Saudi Arabia did not speak for 90 seconds. Rather, he spoke for lesser time, and he did not yield his time. In this way, the moderated caucus goes on, and the other delegates give their speeches, with Russia being the last speaker. It's time we move on to another form of debate, which is an unmoderated caucus. An unmoderated caucus allows delegates to have informal discussions, work upon any paperwork, or talk to other delegates to form blocks. And in an offline conference, delegates can even move around, use restrooms, etc. during an unmod. The recommendation for an unmoderated caucus also requires a time limit to be made.
The delegate of UAE would like to raise a motion to suspend the formal debate and go for an unmoderated caucus of duration 10 minutes.
Delegates in favor? Thank you, delegates. The motion passes and you are now in unmoderated caucus and can use this opportunity for discussing further points or make your working papers.
Now, a working paper is a draft form of a resolution. Once a working paper has been developed to the point that it is fully written and formatted correctly, it may be submitted to the chairs for consideration as a draft resolution. This should be formatted properly, cover important points, and have at least 2 sponsors, and the total number of sponsors and signatories must equal at least 1/3 of the committee members. A draft resolution can later be discussed in the committee. And a sponsor is one who has made substantive contributions to the DR, and the signatory is one who hasn't made substantive contributions but agrees to the points present in the draft resolution. Now here the draft resolution clearly passed. However, generally delegates can have deliberations on each point mentioned in the draft resolution. We have given a link of the sample draft resolution for your reference in the description of the video as well. Now to close the debate, as we mentioned initially, we will need a motion as well.
Delegate of USA, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. The delegate of USA would like to raise a motion for the closing of the debate.
Is there a second? Delegates in favor? Thank you, delegates. The motion clearly passes, and we now end the session.
After the completion of a session, a committee can or cannot have a session of an international press, that is IP, in which the IP asks questions to the delegates based on their speeches made during the session. Let us have a look.
My question is to the delegate of UAE. Is he or she present here?
Yes,
she is.
present.
Does the UAE have plans towards net zero emissions and carbon neutrality? And despite your extensive use of national resources, does UAE consider itself to be the torchbearer of net zero emissions in the Middle East and Northern Africa?
Yes, the UAE Net Zero by 2050 strategic initiative is a national drive to achieve net zero emissions by 2050, making the Emirates the first Middle East and North Africa nation to do so.
Thank you very much.
Now that's how the IP asks questions, and every delegate or some of the delegates can be asked questions by the IP based on their speeches. This is all about an MUN session. And since it's a long process, most MUNs span over 2 to 3 days and can even have events like socials, which is like a party to network and have fun with other delegates. We wish you all a very good luck and may you have a great session ahead. And we hope you had a good learning experience. Thank you.